Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome, and thank you for joining us on this webinar series titled Coming Back Stronger. I'm Tim Mart. I'm CEO and founder of Know You More, and I'll be the host for today for you. We're living in an extraordinary time, a time of uncertainty and rapid change. And within that, there have still been experiences and opportunities for people in society to cut through the way things have always been done and make positive change. I think our aim for these webinars is to really share a few of those leadership stories and lessons with you in the format as Know You More does very well, of human conversation. The structure for today's webinar is a relatively straightforward one. In a moment, I will hand over to our speakers, and they'll speak for 15 minutes, and thereafter we'll open up for a question and answer session. If you've not used Zoom before, you'll see along the bottom that there is a Q&A button. If you click on that button, then you will be able to enter your question, and that will get sent directly to the panelists, and they will answer your question during the Q&A session. That's primarily how we're going to be running the Q&A today, and we do hope to get through them all. So please do participate throughout, and you can enter those questions at any time during the conversation. We've also, for all you social media savvy lovers out there, created a hashtag to join the conversation online. That is hashtag KYMCBS20. So do feel free to tweet away. Again, hashtag KYMCBS20. So to our guests, it gives me great pleasure, and I'm going to hold up my notes here, to introduce today's interviewer and speaker, Camilla Digerth and Dave Caesar. Camilla coaches teams and individuals focused on creating trust and clarity in the cross-cultural and/or virtual space. She is one of our amazing Know You More coaches and has supported us in delivering digital coaching across many of our projects within the NHS. And joining her and sharing their story today is Dave Caesar, who is Head of Leadership, Culture and Wellbeing, Health and Social Care within the Scottish Government. Fascinated by leadership and how to improve it across health and social care, Dave also leads Project Lift, a community movement transforming leadership across all levels of health and social care system in Scotland. That wasn't too bad. Thank you both. Thanks to both of you for joining us. I'm now going to hand over to Camilla to kick off the conversation. Over to you, Camilla.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here with everybody today, and it's a great pleasure to meet you, Dave. And you're going to be sharing the story that we're here to listen to today about resilient leadership. But I'd like to start by asking you if you believe that your role or you somehow have added or made a difference to the project Lift and the National Wellbeing Hub.
Well, that's a simple question that has a complicated answer. So, afternoon, everyone. I guess so. The very simple answer to that is that the National Wellbeing Hub didn't exist 6 months ago. So I guess somewhere in there, a team of us have managed to pull something out of some sort of rabbit out of the hat during what has been, I suppose, quite an extraordinary 6 months. I guess coming back to your question, one might ask, well, what has been the role of someone who might be in a position of some sort of influence around that? And what does that continue to be? And I would have answered that very differently 8 months ago than I would do now. And you know, we're all it's very obvious for everyone kind of what has changed in the interim time. and I guess highlights the profound amount of change that we've all been subject to in however we've experienced it, and that has changed us, both individually and in the way that our teams operate and in the way that we as a society now function. And it's changed us in very different ways, individually and collectively. And one of the things I suppose we've reflected on a lot over the last 6 months is that that experience is very different and has always been different, but perhaps COVID has shone a light on that different experience in a way that perhaps it hasn't been identified before. So that's a thing that I think many of us are still grappling with, which is that, hang on a minute, actually we aren't all in a similar position here, despite the fact that we all might have thought that we are. And in my part of the world, in health and social care, that's challenged us really deeply to think about how people experience health or poor health in normal times, and has that always been as equal as we thought it was? And the answer is no, it isn't. And so it's asking us some really, it's from what is a sort of a shake of the tree through COVID, it has really interrogated the roots of the many trees in which make up our society, if you like, very deeply. To take our understanding below that ground level to something that really asks some very difficult questions for us, which is, are these institutions built on the right premise? So it's a very long-winded way of saying, well, I might have had an influence, but on a sort of very practical level over the last 6 months, that just even forming teams around pieces of work has been incredibly challenging. So the act of teaming, as Amy Edmondson would say, has been really tricky. So that and has been something that we've been again doing a lot of. So within Scottish Government, the whole infrastructure, the organogram, if you like, was torn up virtually in March, and it's been reforming and continually reforming ever since, because new challenges have come up all the time. So that act of teaming has been a constant activity. It's been a constant requirement of leaders, and that has asked of us, again, very important, sometimes difficult questions. So what is my identity in this space that I wasn't in before? How does that challenge what I thought it was before? How has that rocked my sense of centeredness, my sense of well-being, because I'm doing a thing that I wasn't doing before? How do you create coalitions of people around a common purpose when you can't even see their face, when you don't know what their skill set is, when you can't use all the body language that we normally use, when the IT doesn't support the act of teaming in a way that it should do, because we've had to rebuild our infrastructure to enable that to happen. And yet, despite all of that, huge adaptation, huge, very phenomenal amounts of change that people have been able to enact. So the things that we thought were impossible have now been achieved in 6 months that they hadn't been achieved in sometimes a decade. I mean, genuinely a decade of previous attempts in the last 6 months. And through all the heart of that is something that we talk a lot about in Project Lift, which is that understanding humans in the middle of all of that is absolutely essential. And maintaining a humane approach, a kind approach, not to say that that means that we don't do things at pace and have to make decisions and have to put people into positions perhaps that are uncomfortable, but we do it all with kindness, that we do it all with an appreciation of what the human experience is within it, and that we make time to try and make time, at least make an attempt to make time to understand those different experiences as we move through. And that is has all been highly effortful, but also highly meaningful, I think.
So you mentioned, I mean, thank you for explaining that. And, you know, just to give an understanding to our audience, what kind of occupations are we talking about in Project Lift?
So, the health and social care system includes, I was going to say nearly all kind of occupations in many regards. So it includes some obvious clinical staff. So the usual things that you associate with healthcare and social care. So social workers, childcare workers, carers, doctors, nurses, physios, OTs, portering staff, domestics, clinical support workers, etc., midwives, home visitors, all of these sorts of people. And then it includes a whole range of non-clinical staff who are equally important. So domestics, porters, laundry workers, caterers, drivers, managers, chief executives, HR professionals, lawyers, engineers, all healthcare scientists, all of these sorts of people working in the labs and doing all the stuff around contact tracing. You know, a whole army of people that have been recruited in the last 6 months. So in Scotland, that's about 400,000 people all in. So quite a large proportion of the population.
Indeed, and really the people we depend on in a time like this. So very important. And now you mentioned having the heart at the center, but how have you actually gone about? I mean, what is Project Lift and the National Wellbeing Hub?
So they're two different things, but they are interconnected. So Project Lift has been in existence for about 3 years and has been trying to introduce, encourage, grow a new, more modern, perhaps, approach to leadership, which has people at the heart of it. It's all about understanding how people work rather than necessarily, and not to demean the importance of understanding the technicalities of managing systems, but it is to really sort of grow the understanding of human systems and the peopleness, especially in the caring sector. So the quality of care that you receive if you are in a hospital or in a GP practice or in a nursing home or wherever is entirely dependent on the mindset of that individual who is delivering that care at any particular point in time. So I sometimes refer to it as a sort of whole system culture change kind of program, which in some ways it is. So we do that through a number of different mechanisms. One is through a very sort of strong engagement kind of approach to try and sort of win the hearts and minds of people around to why this is important, and then through some slightly more formal kind of approaches, including values-based recruitment being the way in which we try and encourage that values are as important as technical skills, behaviours are as important as knowledge, and we've introduced a talent management pipeline for people. We have, sorry, that's my doorbell going, working from home. We've introduced leadership development opportunities, which are really trying to maximize that approach to humanness and the interconnectivity of the system, how we encourage collaborative and collective approaches to problem solving. and to working through issues, and also to try and encourage a performance appraisal system that takes into account the development of team performance, of individual well-being, of team performance, and of organisational performance in pursuit of a bigger purpose around the national performance framework for Scotland, rather than necessarily sort of an individual objective-seeking kind of approach. So that's what Project Lift is, and through the COVID period, it was very quickly recognised that the well-being of the workforce, and continues to be, but and has always been, you would argue, that has become under particular sort of scrutiny and focus. So the Wellbeing Hub has been a real place to provide clarity on how to look after oneself and those around you, and how to provide opportunities that are evidence-based, accessible at the point of need for individuals working across the health and social care. So there's a clear link there between how we approach leadership in service of others, and the development of the Wellbeing Hub as being in service of the well-being of those that work in the health and social care workforce. And that's where so for example, that's where the Coaching for Wellbeing approach was such a good fit for that. So that that has enabled that offer, if you like, to be there for people when and how they need it. So it, I guess we brigade this all together now within my team, which again has just sort of reformed again through COVID, but to enable leadership to be hand in glove with a holistic approach to well-being.
And now that you mention that, I'm really curious. You were actually someone who really believed in digital coaching and how that would make a difference for that. Could you tell us a little bit more about why you thought that would be a good fit for the program?
So I believe in coaching, firstly, because I've experienced it. You know, I've seen the effect it's had on others, and again, in terms of if one's mission is to enable people to thrive wherever they are in the system, then you would naturally be drawn to opportunities and resources that would make that more likely to happen. So for many people, coaching is one of those things that enables that to be more likely to happen. So for me, it was a no-brainer. For those that are less perhaps familiar with it, it was, or perhaps not quite understood what coaching can offer on an individual level, it was less clear what that would bring in terms of impact. So it was a kind of when there was a kind of the sort of, it wasn't quite serendipity because it had been something that we'd been talking about for a while, but when the opportunity came to sort of combine the two in terms of a wellbeing offer, it was an obvious thing to sort of try and progress, and given that everything is moving to a virtual space, then it was, why would we do this in any other way other than virtually? So I don't materially think that, despite again a little bit of resistance, I don't materially think that the medium over which it's done has necessarily changed that particularly, although some people did believe that it would change that a lot. But I think where there's a will, there's a way, and I think the technology is now there to enable that to happen. And by all accounts, it has been happening pretty much seamlessly and with greater reach than we could have ever hoped, probably because of the use of technology rather than despite it.
So my follow-up question was really, did it live up to your expectations? But I guess you answered it in a way.
Well, so far, but we are awaiting the formal evaluation. Would be my my stock answer. So yes, so far, yeah, absolutely. So um, so and in many ways has been an example of where, again, so would we have been able to convince people to do to, if you like, commission nearly 2,000 hours of digital coaching this time last year? Well, unlikely. So sometimes circumstances force you into a route, and this has. And then when you actually realise, and it's the same in sort of clinical services. So we were sort of tootling along at something like, there were a few hundred digital clinical consultations that were happening a month in Scotland, despite the fact that people have had to travel long distances for a long time. And now we're up at several thousand a week. So that hasn't been because the technology has changed. That's been because there's been a combination of the technology has always been available. We haven't believed it. We've done things the way that we've always done them. We don't like change when we don't suggest it. So all of that other stuff that wraps around embracing technology. These things are, sometimes it's a timing thing. Sometimes it's acknowledging that when opportunities arise, that sometimes you have to grasp them with both hands.
Yeah. And I'm just going to take one moment before I ask you the next question, because we have quite a few more participants than when we started the interview. So if the participants have any questions, please put it in the box. We will have a question and answer at the end. Thank you for that. And I wanted to ask you as well, now that you're looking back at the past few months, is there anything you would have done differently?
There's lots that I would do differently. I guess there are some things that have jumped out of, so there are lots of things that I wish I had done differently a long time ago. And there are some things that I would have done differently during COVID. So I wish I had paid more attention to the impact of equalities earlier in my career. So this is a thing that I suppose I'll carry with me. But there is undoubtedly learning from the experience of COVID that when you I suppose take that and look further back into your career, again, like I guess many of us do, like if only I'd known that when I was 21, 25, 30 or 35 or just, or 40 before now, that would have been, wisdom that I would have greatly appreciated. And perhaps it was always there, but maybe that's just getting old, I don't know. There are some things that have come out of COVID that we had suspected that I would have done more about, and I will continue to do more about. One is, I suppose, about the people and absolutely making time to as much time as you can to provide clarity, which seems like one of the most precious commodities. We were talking about this on a call earlier today, but it seems like one of the most precious commodities at the moment. So providing clarity, even when it might seem obvious to you, it will not seem obvious to others. Understanding and continually asking about interconnectedness and interdependence, which, another thing that COVID has shone a light on it is that whilst it's convenient for us to think of our work as in a certain sector, it isn't. And people do not obey sectoral descriptions of their experience, whether that's territorially, whether it's organizationally, whether it's in terms of service delivery. It is, we just are, it's just too difficult for us to grasp sometimes. So again, making space to really reflect on what we're experiencing is something that we have been able to do to a certain extent during COVID, but we probably should do more of it. That disruption brings opportunity, and I think we've managed to grasp quite a lot of opportunities, but some of them are slipping out of sight, it feels like sometimes. And just being continually open to understanding other people's experience. And sometimes when you feel like you're at the bad end of that, that's difficult for you to make space for. I guess one final thing is about energy. So managing energy in yourself and in others has been really critical, I think, through this time, and will continue to be, especially as the nights start to draw in, and people feel a little bit more oppressed sometimes by what they're experiencing. Managing energy will be really important.
And how have you communicated that energy yourself?
I don't know is the answer. So I suppose I am probably quite energetic, but I can feel when I'm ebbing, and others that know me well can feel when I'm ebbing. So it's just about, back to the basic principles of good leadership. First step of that being self-awareness, and listening to those who are trying to raise your self-awareness in whatever medium, whether that's a clip around the ear from my darling wife or whether it's something else. Just being open to that feedback, which is a gift, of course, and understanding when you need to take a break and when you need to do something that will give you energy back.
Very important, yeah. So I see we have quite a few questions, so it could be worthwhile that we both, and I think you have access to those questions as well. So if we look at what the audience may have for us before we do any further discussion. Let's see here. We have the Q&A box where we have, can you see them, Dave?
Yes. Yep. So
yeah.
Where would you like me to start?
Yeah, if you see something that you find that you'd like to answer straight away, I'm going to have a look here as well to throw a question your way. We have the first one. What have you learned about yourself as a leader for the past 8 months?
So I've been reminded that you can't do anything meaningful really on your own. Making sure that you are bringing people with you, and this was especially true so it's been especially true, it's always true, but it's been especially true when you suddenly are thrown into a situation where you're conducting yourself or trying to sort of convene teams and things over a different medium, whereby you assume that people can catch up with you or can be at your pace or state of thinking at the same speed as they might have been in the room, or for those of you that know me, when I'm drawing really crap diagrams on whiteboards or whatever. That is a dangerous assumption to make. So just making sure that you are checking in with people about whether they, sort of, I suppose, have that clarity that you are trying to encourage, or that or that they have all they need to make good decisions for themselves, to take their own, you know, sort of path on whatever it is. So that is that's something that I've recognised as being incredibly important during the last few months. Also, that just to recognise a bit along the same lines as the energy conversation, is to recognise that you're not immune to feeling unsettled. You're not immune to feeling anxious. You're not immune to feeling like, you know, your world is rocking a little bit. You are subject to all of these experiences, and that you should that it's probably helpful to be open about them, and to have a bit of vulnerability, and to show that in helping others to deal with their own, helping you to deal with your own, you know, sort of experience of this, but also helping others to experience it. So there was a great quote about leaders being, it's not just what you say, it's that is the message. It's you are the message. So if I'm working at midnight, then other people will expect to work at midnight. That's unhelpful. If I'm working, or if I'm not sharing anxiety, then other people won't share anxiety. So I can say, oh yeah, you really must sort of share how you're feeling about this. But if I'm not doing it, then others won't either. And just having that kind of very explicit, intentional, I suppose, task of role modeling all of these things, rather than necessarily, you know, there's been a lot of talk about heroism and heroic leadership over the last, and we in health and social care, especially in the medical profession, we wear that stuff. We love a hero. I mean, we love it. And actually, I've been brought up for 20 years as a professional, whereby the harder you work, the more credible you are. That's been it. And of course, we wonder why people are burnt and lose compassion and lose perspective and lose energy, and are therefore ineffective and not influential and are miserable, because we don't understand the effect that it has on us, because we think that we're different, that we're not human. So just keeping that humanness absolutely central is really important.
Yes, definitely that humanity. Thank you for that. Another question to you. Do you believe that commissioning of virtual engagement will take precedence over face-to-face in the future?
So I think it will. So coming back to that, the basic human needs. So again, that there have been very different experiences about a shift to distant, you know, team working, virtual working, and recognise that some people are totally fine with it, quite happily live in a room for the foreseeable future, see as limited number of people as possible. Other people are desperate to get human contact back again, desperate. And so there's been quite a lot of discussion about what is the best, you know, the best way forward. And of course, there will be a spectrum of views on it. And the idea is that probably that we'll need to do something that is somewhere in between. So, you know, that hybrid way forward, whereby people have the opportunity, and I would especially, you know, think that we could embrace, not just because it is much more COVID sort of secure, but actually just because it's probably better for us anyway, that we start to think more imaginatively about where is that hybrid space. So it's not just either in this office virtually or in another office. Why can't we get outside more? Why can't we walk more to meet? Why can't we do something a bit more playful, dare I say it, in working through problems that might be more socially energizing, that isn't just either in a meeting room or on a computer screen. So I think it's going to be a bit of both, and we haven't found a balance yet, because we are still working through this.
I think that's where we all are, right? Trying to find that perfect medium. So did you see, okay, so let's do this one. You mentioned coaching for well-being. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, please?
So, I could just hand over to Tim at this point, but so the coaching for wellbeing is an offer that we. I was going to say something, and then I'm going to choose a phrase that we carefully constructed after much deliberation after the start of COVID. So, no, of course we didn't. We cobbled it together in about, I don't know, 4 days or something. It was a bit longer than that, but. There was an opportunity to do something. We didn't have any funding, and we knew that the Know You More platform existed because we'd been working with Tim around some other stuff, and we thought, well, what would help? What might help? What might help people at all levels? So it's got to be inclusive. It's got to be free at the point of access for users. And it's got to give something that adds value in as light a touch way for people wherever they are across health and social care. So that was really the sort of, if you like, that's what we were trying to do. And so rather than a traditional 4 sessions, 2 hours, or 6 sessions, 90 minutes, 2 hours, whatever, sit down, contract, etc., etc., etc. Small packages of time for people that were usually, if you like, coaching naive, to say, just, how are you? We're listening. What might be helpful in a short period of time? So very light touch for people who were, in the midst of the March, April, May, and so it's gone on June, July, August, sort of time of COVID, who were incredibly pressurized. So they don't have a lot of time to spare, but it's, as much as anything, to try and create a moment of space, of reflection, of calm, of someone caring, actually. So for someone within the system, say, just to ask, how are you? Is there anything we can help with? What's going through your mind right now? And that in itself has been hugely powerful, especially when, the range of people that have access. So we actually have 2 kind of options. We had a slightly more in-depth one and a slightly lighter touch one, but they were both light touch in terms of coaching, in terms of traditional coaching kind of offers. And we had a sort of, again, light touch kind of application process, and we match people to those offers, and then they were matched to coaches through the Know You More platform. And to correct me if I'm getting anything wrong, Tim, but the reach across the scope of the workforce was phenomenal. It's been phenomenal, and the most heartening bit of it all has been that in the vast majority of people that have taken up the offer, it has been people that would not get close to a coaching offer normally. So these guys are, so childcare assistants or porters or, if I would say shop floor nurses, that's a bad medical term, but, ward nurses or home visitors. Doesn't matter where they are. And we've had chief execs and chief officers access the offers as well. So, but these are folk that would never normally have someone say, here's an hour for you alone, tell me what's on your mind, tell me how we can help. That ethos of being there in service of the coachee is hugely meaningful to people that would never actually, that sometimes have never had that sort of conversation in their career, let alone in a moment of crisis. So that really was kind of what it is, and not surprisingly, the response to it has been brilliant. So yeah, it's nothing more complicated than that.
And I can,
there's knowing that it's probably really complicated in terms of how it's delivered, but nothing more complicated than that.
And I can only confirm what you said as a coach, because it has really been great to support this program, because it has brought value to all these people who really needed support in many, many different ways, because the variety has been quite wide in the discussion, in the topic that we have supported them on. So thank you for that. It's been a pleasure. Let's see. What else should we pick? Have you seen something you would really like to answer? Because there's so many questions at this point. How about this one? Project Lift is hugely inspirational as a project in Scotland. Any thoughts on how we can influence decision makers in other parts of the UK to consider this program being adopted elsewhere?
I guess the first thing to say is we hope, just beginning in Scotland. So there is still significant distance to travel. I suppose what it is doing, it is trying to provide an umbrella, as someone referred to this in a slightly different way, but I'm going to use it, so I hope that's all right. So as a cultural blanket for what it means to be part of health and social care in Scotland. So so for that reason, it's kind of specific to Scotland, but the messaging within it is not specific at all. So the fundamental principles of it are being advanced in other parts of the UK through different mechanisms, with slightly different language, but probably in a way that might be more a better sort of cultural fit for those systems. So I guess the first thing to know about system change is you've got to know what system it is you're trying to change and understand it deeply. So I wouldn't presume to know those other systems or the other parts of the UK in a way that those that work in it know it. And that it's whatever they choose to do in those systems has got to be right for them and got to be owned by them. So, so that sort of lift and land kind of approach probably won't work because people own what they create, and that's a really important part of whatever other systems feel like they need to do. And also, it might not be quite right for them. It might not be where the zeitgeist is. It might be that it needs to be something different or use different words. As ours is constantly kind of adapting to the needs of the system. But we do link into colleagues from across actually the five kind of nations in close proximity. So Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland. So we do have a kind of and there are some kind of there are other cultural blankets that sort of are interlinked. So the Collective Scotland kind of movement, the Collective Leadership Scotland movement. There are many influential voices. Just today, another report from the King's Fund on the well-being of nurses. So based on all of the underpinnings of compassionate leadership and collectivism, if you like, that go into that, and fundamentally, what it is to be a human in a human system. So there are many other people that that have influenced us, that are influencing elsewhere. We will try and share our story if people want to hear it, but we're only really starting out. We've got a way to go yet.
Thank you very much. And I believe I will have to hand over the word to Tim, actually, to start wrapping up, because I kept asking you questions, but there's so many great ones. So Tim, please, I'm sorry for taking a bit too long here to...
No, it was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much, Camilla. I really appreciate that. And as we do wrap up, Dave, final question for me, any sort of final thoughts you would share on resilient leadership that you would might want to leave people with in this moment in time?
So, can I steal another answer as well? So, in terms of resilient leadership, I mean, I guess the one thing that I would come back to, which is that there are basic ingredients of being, if you like, centered, which you will all know, but taking time to really ensure that you understand your own purpose, your own clarity of identity, your own opportunities for influence and action, and making sure that you're bringing others with you, and energizing others and providing that safety for others is what gives me resilience. So that gives me my purpose, and that's what keeps you going often. It's that fact that you are able to contribute to the well-being of others. So that so hold on to that, but also don't be afraid of challenging yourself to understand what where you are in that space. And I've had wobbles during COVID, and I've been like, hang on a minute, I thought I was here. Now I don't know where I am, and having to really kind of just recenter. So press that, on Google Maps, you just got to press that recenter and go, where am I on the map here? And really understand what's around me. What am I doing? What can I do? What do I need to do to be the best of myself and the best of myself for others? And it links to, there was a question there about what have I learned about qualities, which I feel I would be shirking if I don't just give an answer to that, which is that I had that sense of awakening during COVID to my own advantage. So that's been a thing for me, and possibly for others. But then when I look at the system in which we're operating, it is something that I haven't done enough about before, and that we need to do more about during and after COVID. So that is, I suppose, my personal reflection on that equality.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dave. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for such rich insight and conversation. We will start to wrap up now, just on time. And I guess what we recognize is that there was going to be a number of questions that we weren't going to get to answer. Thank you for all of those. We will make sure that we answer all of those questions, and we're going to create, and we have created, a resources page where the recording will be, and also answers to those questions as well, to share afterwards. We are going to be following on this Coming Back Stronger series with another webinar in October, and we will be announcing the speaker and the date for that shortly, so please do join us for another rich conversation then. There was a final thought from this where we thought, you know what, we will share what were the top 3 takeaways that people might have from this, and that we would aggregate those together and share those with you to make them your takeaways. However, we thought it might be nice actually that individually, and there will be some thoughts there that you may have had throughout the session that you may like to share with us, and we would encourage you to do so via either LinkedIn or Twitter. What are the musings, what are the things that have emerged for you that you would like to continue the conversation on in social media? So please do reach out to us, and we'd be delighted to continue that with you. So finally, once again, thank you so much, Camilla and Dave, for the session today. Really grateful. Thank you to everyone who's been involved in and putting it together again. And to keep everyone on time, we look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Thanks very much.